everybody, and welcome back to another Darkest Dungeon tutorial video. I don't remember if I mentioned this in my previous video. I think I did, but just in case, do not start with any of the DLCs except for, you can start with the districts if you want. The districts don't really add any difficulty or anything. In fact, it helps you. So districts are fine to have, and the class DLCs are also fine. The Shieldbreaker kind of adds a little bit of difficulty to the game just because of certain things that I don't really want to spoil, but the Flagellant is just a class, and the Musketeer is just a class. So adding those isn't really gonna, make or break your first experience with the game or anything. But please do not play first time with Crimson Court, and I also wouldn't play first time with Color of Madness. So last video we covered the tutorial dungeon and then the first dungeon. This is not that file. The only reason why I'm showing you this file is because I want to talk about buildings in this video, and I just so happen to have every building unlocked in this file, but this is still very early on in the game. So there's a lot of modded classes in this file. This file is for my stream, and we're playing around with modded classes, so don't even pay attention to the classes on the screen. I know it's kind of confusing. All I need you to focus on is the stagecoach over here, the upgrades. I just want to show you what I prefer to upgrade first in the hamlet. So to start off, as I said in the first Darkest Dungeon tutorials that I made, I highly recommend that your first building upgrade is this right here, the first stagecoach network upgrade. And then I'd recommend getting the blacksmith leveled up, the weaponsmithing, and the armor smithing. And then the guild leveled up twice. The reason we upgrade the guild twice and the blacksmith twice in both armor smithing and weaponsmithing is because that is the prerequisite to be able to unlock experienced recruits. This means that heroes of resolve level 1 will now sometimes appear in the stagecoach. So as you can see here, I've already bought that upgrade, and so you can see some level 1 people in my stagecoach. This is really important because not only is it time consuming to level up a level 0 hero, but also it's expensive because level 0 heroes come with 4 skills unlocked and 3 locked. So you have to spend money to unlock them yourself. However, if we take a look at a level 1 hero that's in the stagecoach, you can see that every single one of their skills are already unlocked for you. And if you look down here with me, they already have their weapon and armor upgraded. This is a lot of money saved, guys. What should you do next? Kind of up to you. I still like upgrading these a lot, but sometimes you gotta upgrade these other 3 buildings. So let's look at these 3 buildings. So I said Abbey and Tavern are just for stress relief, and they are, but sometimes though, for example, Lurtz here is a tippler, so he will only drink, or she will only drink. So she cannot go anywhere else. If you try to put her anywhere else, just get me a pint and I'll be right as rain. A stiff drink is all I need. So she'll only go into the bar. And why is this bad? Well, the bar takes away the least amount of stress. What if Lurtz's stress was maxed out to 100? You would want to put her in either the brothel or in the penance hall, because the amount of stress healed increases as you go down. So the cloister will do the least amount of stress healing, and then the transept will do a little bit more healing, and then the penance hall will do the most stress healing. So you would want, if Lurtz had 100 stress or something out of the dungeon, you would want to put Lurtz into the penance hall or the brothel. But Lurtz won't do that. Lurtz will only go in the bar. But what if, let's say Lurtz had like 50 stress, so it's actually okay to put Lurtz in the bar, and the stress healing from the bar would be good enough. But look at this annoying bastard here. The caretaker always takes up a slot every week, and it's very annoying. What if you really want to take Lurtz out the next week? Well, you can't. If Lurtz had a negative quirk that did not allow him to stress heal anywhere else except the transept, well, now I guess Lurtz is just not going to get stress healed this week, and you have to wait until next week. In order to bypass that, that's why you want to level these up. The first upgrade is always just going to be increases stress recovery. The second upgrade is going to be reduces the cost of whatever the thing is. Cloister, transept, etc. The third one will always increase the slots to 2. So, for example, what if you had 2 flagellants in 1 week? Was a ton of stress, and you really needed to put them into the penance hall, but you only had 1 slot. Well, if you have enough busts and crests, then you can go ahead and increase the slots to 2. So the Abbey uses busts and crests for the upgrades, and the bar uses portraits and crests for the upgrades. I tend to try to not upgrade the tavern. If anything, I'll upgrade the Abbey. But I try to not upgrade the tavern unless I really need someone specific to be stress healed and the caretaker taking up a slot. Because portraits are the hardest to get. And I need a lot of portraits to upgrade my guild. So portraits are the hardest to get because when you get them in the dungeon, they only stack up to 3. If you get a 4th portrait, that's gonna take up another entire inventory slot. It takes a long time to get a lot of portraits. Sanitarium, it treats quirks and diseases. So the Sanitarium uses busts and crests to upgrade. So the only buildings that use busts are Sanitarium and Abbey. So I actually don't prioritize whenever I go into a dungeon early game. This is early game. We're all talking about early game here. I try not to bring busts home. I try to bring home portraits, deeds, and crests. I really try to prioritize portraits, deeds, and crests because portraits, deeds, and crests are what we need to upgrade the stagecoach, the guild, and the blacksmith. So let's go over what these upgrades actually do. So you can decide yourself, oh, I want to put my busts and crests into the Sanitarium. Well, the treatment library, it reduces the cost of the treatment ward, basically. And that's all it does. That's the treatment library. That's what all these upgrades do. Well, it'll keep reducing the cost of treatment by 10% every upgrade. For medical devices, it reduces treatment cost and it increases chance of curing extra diseases because your champion can have a max of 3 diseases. Ryota here has 2 diseases. And she can have 1 more. So if I were to put her into the medical ward and I choose to get rid of diphtheria, there is a chance, because I have this upgrade already unlocked, there's a chance that I will also get rid of eldritch blood. Okay, so that's what the medical devices upgrades do. The patient cell upgrades, all they do is just increase the number of patients. This increases the number of medical wards to 2, and then this increases the treatment wards to 2. The third one will unlock the 3rd medical ward, and then this 4th upgrade will unlock the 3rd treatment ward. That's the full upgrade right there. So a treatment ward, this is where you treat your quirks. We didn't talk too much about quirks last time, but basically there's positive quirks that are good and there's negative quirks that are bad. Let's say I wanted to get rid of Tippler. Okay, so it's 1,050 gold. Even though I've already upgraded the Sanitarium 3 times, getting rid of negative quirks early on is pretty important because quirks can lock. Negative quirks can lock after a dungeon. So for example here, my beautiful Highwayman Vengitron. I love Vengitron. Very strong. I love the Highwayman. But look at his quirks. I already have 2 quirks. These 2 are locked. And if they're locked, look how much it costs. This is after 3 upgrades already. Look how much it costs to get rid of that. That's a lot of money. But look how much it costs to get rid of a normal one. 1,470. Now this gold number changes depending on your hero's level. If we bring Skullland here, our legendary man-at-arms, and I try to get rid of that, it's gonna be 1,890. If we bring in a level 1 person and try to get rid of that, 1,050. It depends on the person's level, which is why I like getting rid of negative quirks early on, and I like reinforcing positive quirks early on. So what is reinforcing positive quirks? Well, that costs a lot of money, let me tell you. For a level 6 legend, it costs 9,450 with the 3 upgrades. I haven't fully upgraded this yet. You know what? Let's do it. Let's go ahead and upgrade one. Went out to 8,100. Still very expensive. But sirs, why would you lock one? What's the point of locking one? Well, let me tell you. If your champion already has 5 positive quirks, and you know how when you go into a dungeon and you beat the dungeon, there's a chance of you to get a positive quirk? Well, there's a chance for a new positive quirk to replace one of your old positive quirks. And sometimes it sucks. Sometimes the trade really sucks. So if you have somebody like, for example, Yiddy here, he's only level 2, but I've already reinforced 2 quirks on him. See, if it's only level 2, only 4,500, still expensive, which is why I like doing it early on. Whereas when it's freaking 8,000, man, it's freaking 8,000 when it's a level 6 guy. This is why I like upgrading the Sanitarium when I have enough busts instead of upgrading the Abbey. And this is why I try to get rid of negative quirks and enforce positive quirks early on in the very low level people. It is a risk though, because then if they die, it's like you spent all that money reinforcing insert quirks and getting rid of negative quirks, and when they die, they take your money with them. So it is a little bit of a gamble, but that's what I personally like to do. You don't have to do any of that. Now let's talk about the survivalists. Survivalists only use crests. Crest. And the only thing this does is it just reduces the cost. That's all it does. And honestly, is it worth it? It really depends. If you're really struggling on money, but you really need to unlock a specific campfire skill, I guess it'd be worth it, you know? But at base level, it is 1,750. Kind of expensive. And there are some camping skills that you really want. Now this video, I want to go over camping skills, but before I go over camping skills, I want to show you what a camp even looks like. So in a medium length or long length dungeon, you will get firewood to make a camp. To use it, you just right click on it and it'll start a camp. Now, you need a lot of food for these camps, okay? So make sure you bring extra food if it's a medium or long dungeon. I would recommend probably buying full stacks of food until you kind of know exactly how much food you use or don't use in certain dungeons. Make sure you have some food. You have to be in a room to camp. You can't camp in the room that you start out with though, but there would be there's like no reason why you would. When would you camp? You would camp before a boss fight. If you just want to buff your team a little bit, you camp if everyone's low on health and you just want to give everybody some healing. You camp if everyone's getting a little bit too stressed out and you're on the brink of insanity and you want to do some stress healing. Any of those 3 reasons, or maybe all 3 of those reasons, is when you would want to camp. So, but let's go in here. Let's use this campfire here. It'll show you the choices. So if you take 0 food, if you camp and you don't have any food in your inventory, you just gave everyone in your party minus 20% HP and extra 15 stress. That's not good. That's like worst case scenario. Eating only 2 food doesn't do anything. You don't lose health, but you don't gain health, and nothing happens to your stress either. If you eat 4 food, everybody will get an extra 10% HP recovery. If you eat 8 food, everyone gets a little more healing and minus stress. So since we're not actually starving or anything, I'm just gonna give them half food, whatever. It doesn't really mean anything. But I just wanted to show you this. So I have a specific building that gave me these 2 extra points. Oh, I forgot I had this. I'm sorry, but it's supposed to say 12. I'm gonna put a 12 over this so you don't get confused. So respite, 12 points. What is this? What does this 12 mean? So you see this hourglass, that means this, I guess it's like the hours, or it's just, I just call it respite points. So now you'll see here in the bottom left, instead of the combat skills, you'll see the camping skills that you brought in. Now you gotta figure out what you want to do with the 12 points that you have. One good thing you can do is prevent nighttime ambush, which I actually do not have equipped right now. So what nighttime ambush is you have a 33% chance to get ambushed while everybody's sleeping. So after this whole campfire, there's a 33% chance that you will get ambushed. And then when you get ambushed, because you're surprised, just like any other time you get surprised, your party shuffles. So your party gets shuffled, the torchlight is 0 because it's nighttime, and it's just like not a fun time. But sometimes, you know, you might be like, I want to take that risk. I want to take the 33% chance and not waste 4 points to get rid of a nighttime ambush. 4 out of my precious 12 points to get rid of a nighttime ambush. You might say that. Another thing that you would want to do during this time if they had any stress is use any stress healing, or if they were very low, you would use any healing skills like she has, heal all companions. There's buffs that you can give yourself like reflection, does minus 20 stress, extra accuracy, and crit for 4 battles. The bounty hunter has a self extra accuracy and 8 crit, so this costs 2 times, this costs 3 times, this costs 3 times, this costs 3 times, this costs 3. Campfire skills will range anywhere between 1 time cost to 5 time cost, but it's usually like 2, 3, or 4. And then you just have to kind of figure out what you want to do with the 12 points that you have. So let's just do what I normally would do. I'm going to go over the campfire skills. I'm only showing you this page to just show you what the hell is a campfire. Because if you're completely new to the game, you haven't even been into a medium length dungeon yet because you don't even have the survivalist tent unlocked, you don't know what a campfire is, here you go. This is what a campfire is. I'm just going to do some random buffs. And this is not gonna do anything. And then let's rest. So you use all your respite points, goes down to 0, and then you're gonna rest. Now, we didn't get that nighttime ambush. I kind of wish we had, so I can show you what it looks like. It just goes dark, your party gets shuffled around, and there's an enemy attack, and sometimes it's just like 4 spiders, and I'm like, I don't care if you four spiders ambush me, go ahead. But also it could be very terrifying too. So anyway, we're gonna get out of here before the pigs have very loud sex in our ears. And then now I'm gonna be going over every single character's skills and campfire skills that I personally think that you should bring into these dungeons. So I'm gonna go over the first 4 heroes that you get, and then I'm gonna talk about every other hero. So the first hero, let's start with a Highwayman. So Highwayman, he's very versatile. He's good in any position. I really like using the Highwayman as a frontliner. So I really like having the Highwayman up in the front because he has this skill called Point Blank Shot. If you look at Point Blank Shot, what it does, it says back 1. That means you go back 1. So the Highwayman in the front does Point Blank Shot and goes back 1. So he goes to the second position. So I really like using him with another frontliner in position 2. So he uses Point Blank Shot, and if I'm gonna bring Point Blank Shot, I always bring in Duelist Advance. The Point Blank Shot, pow! It's a ton of damage to whoever's in the front, because you see a yellow circle in position 1 for us, and the red circle in position 1 for the enemy. So you can only use this when you're right in the front, and you can only hit the guy right in front. That's why it's called the Point Blank Shot. So it pushes you back, right? So now you're in position 2. Well, what does Duelist Advance do? Duelist Advance you can use in position 2, 3, and 4. And you can use it to hit anybody in position 1, 2, and 3. And what it does, it says forward 1. Which means, boop, back up to the front you go. Oh, now you're ready for another Point Blank Shot. This does so much damage. Look at the damage mod, 50%. It knocks back whoever's in the front, 140% chance to do that. Extra crit chance, big accuracy. It's really good. I really like opening with Point Blank Shot. So what Duelist Advance does is not only does it do damage, but it also activates Riposte on you. Because you'll see self and then activates Riposte. What Riposte means is, anytime an enemy damages you, or would have damaged you, because it counts if you dodge or if they miss, you Riposte. So you hit them back. So I like giving the Highwayman a lot of dodge, so that he can keep dodging and just hitting people back. It's really fun. The other 2 skills is kind of up to you, honestly, and it kind of depends on what dungeon you're going into. The last video I mentioned, if you're gonna go into the ruins or the cove, don't bring a bleed skill. So if I were gonna go into the ruins or the cove and I was gonna bring a Highwayman, I would make sure that Open Vein was not chosen. Instead, if I really wanted another melee skill, I would use Wicked Slice instead of Open Vein, because bleeding is not gonna work in those 2 dungeons. So you can bring in Wicked Slice if you want more damage to the front, and then Pistol Shot, so you can shoot people in the back while you are in the second position from your Point Blank Shotting and Duelist Advancing and all this dancing around. I really like the Highwayman because you can dance around a lot. Grape Shot Blast is fine. I feel like if you're gonna do an AoE based team, probably use Grape Shot Blast, but I tend to not like AoE moves that much. I really just like single targeting and just getting rid of enemies like immediately before they even get a chance to attack. So since I don't really like AoEs that much, I don't really use Grape Shot Blast. Not saying you shouldn't, but I just don't. Tracking Shot can be really good. I bring Tracking Shot into boss dungeons specifically because you get this buff for the entire fight. And usually, if it's not a boss fight, the fights don't really last that long. And so I just don't think it's super worth it to buff yourself when you could have done damage and maybe even one-hit kill somebody. However, it does have a use. It bypasses stealth and de-stealth people. You won't be able to see any stealth monsters until you get to veteran and champion level dungeons. There are no stealth people in apprentice dungeons. In veteran and champion levels, there will be people who stealth and you can't hit them because they're stealthed. And it's very annoying. So it's nice to have a de-stealth skill if you know you're gonna go into these higher level dungeons. They do de-stealth after a few turns on their own, so it's not necessary to have a de-stealth skill. But like I said, depending on what dungeon you're going into, what your lineup is, you might want this skill. But usually I go with these. I go with Wicked Slice, Pistol Shot, Point Blank Shot, and Duelist Advance, or Open Vein, depending on where I'm going. If I'm going to the Warrens, I definitely would bring Open Vein instead of Wicked Slice because the pigs bleed very easily in there and it's awesome. Now, camping skills for Dismas, I actually like these 4. I like the right 4 unlocked. I'll bring Bandit Sense if there's nobody else that can prevent a nighttime ambush. I really like Clean Guns because it increases the accuracy, damage, and crit of your range skills. But I also really like Unparalleled Finesse. I typically use him for melee skills, like the Riposte and the Duelist Advance and the Open Vein. So I think I use Unparalleled Finesse a little bit more often just because it gives you the extra dodge, and I really like dodge with Riposte. But I mean, these are both great options. Gallows Humor can be really good depending on how your luck is. Gallows Humor reduces your own stress, so it reduces his own stress by 25, which is a lot. But there's a chance of stressing out somebody else. But there's also a bigger chance of de-stressing them too. So you could de-stress yourself 25 and de-stress all 3 of your other companions by 20 stress. That's huge! But there's also a 25% chance that instead of de-stressing them, you give them 10 stress. Because they think that your humor is terrible and you're just not a funny person, and then you feel bad about yourself. But still, I like bringing in Gallows Humor because I want to gamble with it a little bit. But if I didn't need to bring Bandit Sense, like let's say I'm bringing somebody else that can prevent nighttime ambush, I like going with Encourage. I like going with the stress healing, especially if I don't have a stress healer in my party. Then Encourage is a very cheap way to decrease people's stress. So the next person I'm going to talk about is the Crusader. I actually don't use him too much. It's not that he's bad. He's actually really good in the ruins, but I just feel like he's a little bit underwhelming and I could use other heroes instead, who just do more damage and just have more utility. That being said, the Crusader is still really good, especially in the ruins because he does extra damage against unholy people, like the skeletons. So Spite is really good. Zealous Accusation is fine if you want that AoE in the front line. I like Stunning Blow because sometimes you gotta stun people in the front line who are very annoying. I don't think I've ever used Bulwark of Faith, ever. Depending on who you're bringing into your party, you might want Battle Heal. Let's say you're not bringing in a healer. Well, then you might definitely want to give heal to your Crusader. If you have no healer coming in, he can be your healer. He can kind of try to keep you alive. I really like his Inspiring Cry though. I think this used to only be a stress relief skill, but I think they buffed it. So it does healing and stress relieving and it ups your torch. It's pretty good. If you were in a party where you're just shuffling everyone around like crazy, well then you might want Holy Lance. Because if he were to be shuffled back into position 3 or 4 somehow, the only damaging skill that he can use is Holy Lance. So you would want to use Holy Lance to move him forward, because you can only use Holy Lance in positions 3 and 4, and it brings you forward 1. The Crusader's camping skills. Right now I have these 4 enabled, and honestly, that's the only ones I ever use on him, to be honest. I never use Unshakable Leader. It reduces the amount of stress taken, but I don't really care about that. I would rather just like get rid of like all of our stress. Like you can use Zealous Speech and get rid of the entire party's stress by 15 and give everybody less stress taken by 15% for 4 battles. Zealous Vigil is also pretty good to have unlocked. It removes my own stress unless I'm afflicted, then it only removes 15 stress. But it also prevents a nighttime ambush. So if I was going to bring in a Crusader and a Highwayman, I probably would unequip Bandit Sense and give him Encourage, or unequip Zealous Vigil and give him like Wound Care or something else, you know? Because you don't need 2 prevent nighttime ambush, you just need 1. Now the Vestal. I like to have, so this again is another prevent nighttime ambush skill, and if anybody in the party has mortality debuffs, and what that means is if they were ever on death's door, you get a death door debuff, and the only way to get rid of that debuff is by using a camping skill that gets rid of mortality debuffs. The best Vestal camping skills are Bless, 100%, cost 3, and it buffs somebody's accuracy and dodge for 4 battles. This is a must-have on a Vestal. Just Bless, very, very good. Pray, I tend not to... I don't really use Pray, honestly. Chant, I also don't use, really. I would rather just have this nighttime ambush, this Bless, and then an Encourage and a Wound Care just in case we have a couple of time points left over that we want to use. And her combat skills, I almost always have these 4. There are uses for this, like if she's a position 3 Vestal and you know you're going to go into a dungeon that has a lot of stealth people, then you probably want to bring Illumination instead of maybe like Judgment or Dazzling Light. Maybe you don't care too much about the stun or the Judgment, maybe you would rather just de-stealth people. Hand of Light and Mace Bash is very interesting because she can technically be a position 2 Vestal. It's very weird. She can't use her single target heal, but she can still use her party heal in position 2. So if you want a frontline Vestal, you can. The 4th person that you get is the Plague Doctor. Now, the Plague Doctor. If you were to ask me, what skills do I use on a Plague Doctor? All of them. Honestly, all of them. They're all useful. I think the one I use the least is the buff. It's a very good buff. I just tend to not use buffs. I would rather just kind of do damage, but it really depends. Like if we're going into a boss fight and the boss is really tanky and I know that in advance, then I might bring in Emboldening Vapors, you know? But this really 100% depends on which dungeon you are bringing her into. If you are bringing her into the ruins or the cove, give her the blights. Give her the blights, maybe give a little disorienting blast, maybe do definitely a battlefield medicine. Because battlefield medicine cures blight and bleed on your friend and on yourself. So it's great, especially in the cove where in the higher levels there's a giant crab that does tons of bleeding. So I love bringing the Plague Doctor into the cove because she has this battlefield medicine. Get rid of that bleed. You don't have to use bandages so much. Let's say you're bringing her into either the Worms or the Weald, where they are weak against bleed and strong against blight. Well then, I'm probably gonna bring my Blinding Gas, the AoE stun, the Disorienting Blast, the stun that shuffles an enemy around, Incision, which does damage and bleeds, but she has to be in position 3 for that, and Battlefield Medicine. But she is very much, I would say, a position 3 character. I feel like she's best at position 3, so I like keeping her in position 3. The camping skills, which camping skills should you give her? Well, Experimental Vapors is okay. It's good. It's pretty expensive though. The time cost is 4. It does do a lot of healing, but I don't think I've ever really needed to use this. But Leeches, the Cure, and Self-Meditate, I would say, are the 3 camp skills for sure that you need unlocked on the Plague Doctor. Leeches heals one companion's health, removes their blight, and removes disease. And when I say remove disease, I mean removes all disease. That's why a lot of people, instead of, like, let's say Light Blub. So Light Blub here, this bounty hunter has creeping cough. That's a really bad disease. But I really want to bring Light Blub into this specific dungeon. and I don't want to put him in the hospital because it costs too much money. What do I do? Just bring him in with a plague doctor or a grave robber, and they can get rid of the disease for you. You literally just click on leeches and click on the man, and it gets rid of his creeping cough. Let's say he had 3 diseases, it gets rid of all of them for free. It's amazing. It's so good. The cure only costs 1. And it removes disease on yourself, so the plague doctor gets rid of her own disease, and it gives me disease resistance. This is so important in the Warrens, let me tell you. The Warrens will give you so much disease. Oh my god, those pigs. Self-medicate is also very good. It costs 3, and it heals your stress, it heals your health, removes blight, removes bleeding, and it gives you an accuracy buff for 4 battles. It's so good. Don't ask me why I don't have it unlocked. I don't know. This is a file from almost 4 years ago, so I don't remember. But there you go. So those are the 4 people that you start out with. Let's go over now to the bounty hunter. Why not? I really like the first 6 skills that he has. I tend to not really use caltrops. I just don't really care. I just feel like his other moves are a little bit better. So Mark for Death is a very good mark skill if you're going into a dungeon that has enemies with high protection, which in champion levels is like every dungeon. So I really like Mark for Death because it decreases the enemy's protection. Not only that, but it buffs your speed as well. Collect Bounty. If you're gonna bring a mark, you gotta bring Collect Bounty because this does extra damage against marked targets, an extra 90% damage in fact. So it's really good if you're gonna bring in a bounty hunter, you gotta have these 2, you know? Unless there's someone else you're bringing in that has a marked target ability, and you would rather focus on doing the damaging and not doing any marking, then that's up to you. You don't have to bring in this, but if you are going to bring in a mark team, you have to bring in Collect Bounty. Come Hither is pretty good. It used to only be a pull, so I would never use it, but now it's a pull and a mark. So you can pull like a squishy backline character up, pulls 2. So you can pull a character in position 4 all the way up to position 2, or you can pull a character in position 3 all the way up to position 1. So that's pretty good, and it marks them. Uppercut is also really good. It's a stun. It's a knockback and a stun. It does good damage, so it's pretty good. I like the stun. This is another stun, but this you can't do while you're in the first position. This you can do in the first 2 positions. This you can only do if you're in position 2, 3, or 4. I think I use them the most around position like 2 or 3. But anyway, what Flashbang does, it's another stun, but this one shuffles that enemy just randomly. Finish him is pretty good because it can reach all the way up to the 3rd position on the enemy line. Collect Bounty can only reach up to position 2. But Finish Him can reach up to position 3. So if you want your bounty hunter to have a little bit extra reach and reach that position 3, Finish Him is really good to bring in. And caltrops I don't really use, but everything else you can mix and match all you want. They're all really good. Now, for camping skills, the best camping skill for the bounty hunter is this is how we do it. Only costs 2, but it gives you a 8% crit increase and a 10 accuracy for 4 battles. It's so good. I don't use any of the other ones, honestly. As long as this is how we do it is unlocked, I pretty much bring in this is how we do it, and then encourage and wound care just in case we need that, and then whatever else is unlocked, I really don't care. What this does is increases the chance of monsters to be surprised and decreases the chance of your party to be surprised. Plan Takedown is good against certain bosses. If you know you're gonna bring the bounty hunter in to a boss that is size 2, then Plan Takedown is really good. But other than that, I don't really care about Plan Takedown. Scout Ahead also. I mean, it's not bad, definitely. Scouting is really good. But am I really gonna spend 3 of our precious time out of 12 to have an extra scouting chance? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, it's not bad. I just probably wouldn't put money into it, but if I had it, there might be times where I'm like, oh, maybe I'll use that, but probably not. So that's the bounty hunter. Next person I'm going to talk about is the Houndmaster. Let's do all the marked target people now. Look at this man. He has a dog. Very cute. It does extra damage against a marked target. And as you may be able to guess, it also comes with a marked target skill. This one debuffs protection by 30, which is huge. A lot of higher level dungeons have people with a lot of protection. And getting rid of that protection is very important. This actually gives more of a debuff than this, because this does minus 20% protection, but it does give you the self buff of 5 speed, that's why. But this debuffs the protection by 30%, so it's really good. Now, depending on where you put your Houndmaster, you want different skills. If you're gonna use your Houndmaster in the 3rd position or in the back line, which I tend to do, not always, but I usually do. I would bring in Cry Havoc because this is a AoE stress heal. It's a 74% chance to stress heal everybody in your party. And Hound's Harry depends, honestly. Like I said, I don't really like AoE attacks, so I probably wouldn't use Hound's Harry. But sometimes having that little bit of AoE does help, especially because this bleeds for 3 rounds. So if I'm gonna go to the Warrens and I know that the pigs bleed easily, I'm probably gonna bring in Hound's Harry. If I don't, though, I'm probably gonna bring in the self-heal. Because sometimes your healer is stunned or something and you really need a self-heal. Well, he had a self-heal, so it's not bad to have. If I were to bring a Houndmaster in 2nd position, because sometimes bringing in like 2 Houndmasters, one in 2nd position, one in 3rd position, and just like having a mark team is actually so strong. If I were to put him in the 2nd position, though, I would not have Cry Havoc on, because you can only use it in the 3rd and 4th position. I would bring Blackjack. It's a big boy stun. I think it might have the highest stun chance in the game. I'm not sure, though. Don't quote me on that. But it can reach positions 1, 2, and 3, and stuns him. So it's great. It's a really good skill if he's in the 2nd position. Now the camping skill for the Houndmaster. So this is a prevent nighttime ambush. It's basically the exact same as the Highwayman's prevent nighttime ambush. But the must-have is the therapy dog. Everyone minus 10 stress, and everyone gets minus 10 stress. 10% stress taken for 4 battles. Man's best friend is also a must-have, only 2 time points, and does minus 20 stress on yourself. Now, this release the Hound, I don't really use it. I probably would just use wound care or something, you know, because we already have so much stress relief. But this Houndmaster is a great stress relief person to bring if you don't have a stress relief character in your party. Very good stress relief person to bring for medium and long dungeons for those campsites. Now the next person that uses marked is, I'm gonna talk about the Arbalest. So Arbalest, sniper shot, extra damage, and crit versus marked target also come with her very own mark. However, her mark does not reduce protection, it reduces dodge, which can also be very good. They have backline people who are very, very, very hard to hit, so if you want to reduce the dodge, use her. I almost never use suppressing fire. It's a debuff for the back line, so the debuff for positions 3 and 4, it debuffs their accuracy and crit, but like I don't really care, you know. I'd rather just sniper shot someone down, you know. So with Bola you can hit the front 2 people. It's not bad, and it can knock them back, so it's pretty good. Blind shot is a random target, so you can use it at any position, or blind fire, I'm sorry. You can use it in any position. It buffs your speed. And so if there was like one person left and it was in the very front line and it was my turn and I didn't have Bola equipped, then I would blind fire, because then I would be able to hit the front line. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to hit the front line. I can only hit positions 2, 3, and 4. Battlefield Bandage I always bring, because it's a nice little heal and it buffs the amount of healing that you receive. So you can keep healing the same target and they'll get super healed. Rallying Flare is a must-have in a certain boss fight, but I'm not going over bosses this video. That'll be an entire other video, because this video is already gonna be very, very long, okay? But this, what it does is it gets rid of the stealth, and increases your torch by 7. It clears stun off of anybody on your team. If anybody on your team is marked, it gets rid of that. And there's a 67% chance of reducing everyone's stress by 3. See, any combination of these skills besides suppressing fire, I think is really good. For camping skills, I tend to really only use Restring Crossbow. It's a big buff for her, and it only costs 3. So I really like Restring Crossbow, and I really like Triage because it only costs 3, but it does an AoE heal for everybody on your team. So these two are must haves when you bring her. Field Dressing is pretty good. It removes bleeding from somebody, and it heals, so it's pretty good. Marching Planet, it buffs everyone's speed. If you really care, I never really use it because it costs 3, but both of these cost 3, and these are like so much better. Next person who has a marked synergy is the beautiful Grave Robber. I love the Grave Robber. She's one of my favorite classes. Now, what to bring with her? She is so versatile. Just like the Highwayman, she is so versatile. You can have like every single one of these skills. Now, I know it says like I didn't upgrade Shadow Fade and Lunge, but this was from 4 years ago. I have learned since then that Shadow Fade, my favorite combo is to put her in the front, bring Shadow Fade, Lunge, and Thrown Dagger and Poison Darts if I'm going into a place where people do not have high blight resistance, like Ruins or the Cove. Otherwise, I bring either Flashing Daggers or Pick to the Face, depending again where I go. Pick to the Face is now Armor Piercing. It didn't used to be, but it is Armor Piercing, so probably a better choice. Flashing Daggers is an AoE attack, so if you're bringing like an AoE team, or if you think there's going to be more of a chance of you to do AoE damage, Flashing Daggers, but I would probably pick these for in most scenarios, unless again you're going into the Cove or the Ruins, because they will get blighted. 4.4 rounds is huge, and the crit mod is plus 11.5, so this shit crits almost all the time, and it's amazing. But anyway, so Shadow Fade, what it does is it puts you, it puts you back to, ooh, it's called Firing Squad. I like it when I find these little names. Ooh, it's because this is a mark team. That's why. So yeah, here you go, Firing Squad, a mark team. Literally, like, you can bring these in. He has a self heal, she has a heal. You don't need a healer, just bring them in and just destroy people with your mark synergies. But anyway, what I like doing though is Shadow Fade. It brings me back to, so now I'm in position 3. Buffs myself, my damage, crit, and dodge for 2 rounds. And I'm stealthed, so nobody can touch me. Enemies cannot touch me unless they have an AoE attack. And then I like to lunge. Very strong move. Lunge brings you forward 2, so now you're back up in the first position. And this crits so much that I will see my Grave Robbers critting like 49, 65, 71, like the crits are insane, and it happens often, especially because you just Shadow Faded, so you get that crit bonus plus the Lunge's crit bonus. You just crit city. It's amazing, beautiful combo. Highly recommend doing that, unless of course, you know, if someone is marked and they're out of reach of lunge. Let's say they're in the 4th position, because you can't hit the person in the 4th position with lunge. Well, then I probably will just use Thrown Dagger and just kill him, because my crit is still very much increased. Thrown Dagger has an increased crit chance, and with Shadow Fade's extra crit everywhere. I love it. I love critting. So those are the 4 skills that I would recommend. For camping skills, I honestly think the only camping skill really that you must have is the Snuff Box. Costs 3 time, removes your own diseases and someone else's diseases. Easy. I love bringing her in with people with tons of disease. Let's get rid of all of them. Gallows Humor, once again, is same thing, exact same skill as what the Highwayman has. Pretty good for stress relief. These 4 are the 4 camping skills I tend to bring with her. I don't care about the extra scouting chance that much, and I don't really care about Pilfer. Provides a random supply item. I mean, I like almost never use that. You can bring it in, it's not bad. You can get like a holy water or a shovel or, you know, a random item, but I tend to not bring that in. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the Antiquarian. Now, she is very important early game, very much less important late game. She's really important early game because when you use her character to interact with curios, you will get an extra item called an artifact. And these artifacts can stack in your inventory, and it's just extra gold, basically. So if you're running low on gold, you want to bring an Antiquarian in. Her skills aren't like that great, honestly. Like Nervous Stab is just like a small amount of melee damage. Festering Vapors, you can do a little bit of Blight. Get Down, you can buff your speed and dodge, and Get Down is when you're in the front line. Let's say the enemy pulled you up to the front line. You want to use Get Down and go back to the back line because she's pretty squishy. Flash Powder gets rid of stealth, debuffs the target's accuracy. Fortifying Vapors heals and buffs your bleed and blight resistance. Invigorating Vapors buffs the target's dodge, like your own teammate's dodge. Protect Me forces guard by allies. So if I'm the Antiquarian and I say protect me and I use it on a Houndmaster, now that Houndmaster is guarding me. So any attacks that come to me as Antiquarian will instead go to the Houndmaster. But it also gives that Houndmaster extra dodge and extra protection. I would probably bring in the Protect Me, the Fortifying Vapors, just as like a secondary healing, and then probably Festering Vapors if I were to go into a dungeon where people are weak against Blight, and a Nervous Stab just like if you need that extra, like, oh, I only needed the 3 more damage. Well, here we go. Here's your 3 damage. As far as camping skills go, hers aren't that great. Like I really don't use her. She's really just for the money. You just want to use her to get money. So I would probably just bring Encourage and Wound Care. Resupply gives you a random supply item, like, you know, like keys or herbs or stuff like that. Anti-venom, stuff like that. It only costs 1, so why not? Ticket Scrounge produces a random trinket, so that's also like pretty good. And then Strange Powders, you know, if you're going against, let's say, a boss that is gonna definitely move you or definitely debuff you or something like that, then I would probably use Strange Powders to buff somebody's resistances a lot. Or if somebody has like a disease or something that reduces all of their resistances, Strange Powders is fine. It's just there's better camping skills on other heroes. I probably wouldn't use that. I honestly would probably only use Resupply and maybe Trinket Scrounge if I had the inventory space for it. But with the Antiquarian, you probably don't have the inventory space for it because your inventory is probably filled with gold. And the Curious Incantation, it just gives yourself less stress taken before battle, which, I mean, like, if you have 1 point left over and you have nothing else to do, fine, use it, but I don't think it's that great. So moving on, let's talk about the Hellion. So for the Hellion, what I really like to use on the Hellion is, like, the must-haves for me personally are Wicked Hack and Iron Swan. Wicked Hack and Iron Swan I think are very, very important. She is a frontliner who can reach the back line, but only if she's in the very front position. But you can reach the back line, and it does so much damage, extra crit chance. You could probably one-hit kill somebody back there. It's awesome having the Iron Swan. Wicked Hack, a lot of damage to the guys in the front. I like if it bleeds because it can reach the 3rd position, and it bleeds for a lot. 4 points for 3 rounds when it's maxed out. Yop is pretty good too. This is also a huge stun chance for the front 2 people. So you're stunning 2 people, which is pretty good, but it does debuff your own damage. I don't like the debuffing your own damage, but sometimes it comes in really, really clutch. Sometimes you just really need that stun. What I really like to use, the ones that I tend to use, as you can probably tell because these are both level 1, so I never use them, I really like Adrenaline Rush. It's a self-heal, it cures blight and bleed, and it buffs your damage and accuracy. So when you really need it, when you're like, oh shit, I'm bleeding out, I have a lot of blight, I have a lot of bleed, I need a heal. Well, might as well heal yourself and buff yourself a crazy amount. I really like Adrenaline Rush. Now, Bleed Out, I know a lot of people do use Bleed Out. It does extra damage, and it does extra crit chance, and it bleeds people by a lot. This is level 1, so I don't know what it's like when it's fully leveled. Let's take a look. It bleeds by 5 points for 3 rounds. Extra damage by 20%. Extra crit 10%. But again, this debuffs your damage and speed. And it can only work on the very front person. So it can be really good in the warrant or the wield, but instead of having a big boy bleed, I think I'd rather have the heal, you know? Like that's just my preference. Breakthrough, what this does is if you somehow get pushed to the back of the line or something, it brings you forward, so you can only use it when you're position 2, 3, and 4, and it does an AoE attack to the front 3 people. Doesn't do that much damage, obviously, because it's an AoE attack. Let's see what it does when I fully upgrade it. It gives an extra 3% crit chance, but the damage mod is still minus 50% because it is an AoE attack, so it's obviously going to do a little bit less damage. But again, it debuffs yourself. You know? So, like, I know a lot of people use Breakthrough because it can be really strong, especially with, like, crit trinkets or something. But I tend to not like the debuff, and I tend to not like AoE attacks, so I usually use these 4 skills. Again, if you're doing an AoE build, or you know, you have a lot of herbs so you can get rid of your debuffs and you don't care about the debuffs, they're all good. If you don't care about the debuffs, they're all good. All of our skills are great. These are just the 4 that I prefer using, and I have explained the reasoning why. So the camping skills that are must have on a Hellion is absolutely Sharpened Spear. Costs 3, but it gives yourself extra 10% crit for 4 battles. Now, when I say must have, I don't mean you must use it every camping skill. It's just, it's the best camping skill that she has, in my opinion. That extra crit is really nice. Reject the Gods can be very good if you have a ton of stress and everyone else in your party doesn't really have that much stress. I like Reject the Gods to reduce my own stress by 30, which is huge. It stresses out your party, though. If they're religious, it stresses out not a little bit more. It makes sense because you reject the Gods. And if they're not religious, it only gives them 7 stress. So it's pretty worth it, I think. So how do you know if someone's religious or not? Well, the Vestal and the Leper and the Crusader are religious by default. I believe the Flagellant is also, but I'm not sure. It doesn't say anywhere, like in your tooltip or anything. It doesn't say whether they're religious or not. It's just like a hidden stat or something. So if a religious character has a negative quirk called Faceless, they are no longer religious. For example, our Leper here is Faceless. What this means is he will not pray or flagellate for stress relief, but I believe this also gets rid of his religiousness. There's also a quirk called God-fearing, and that makes a non-religious character into a religious character. It's kind of confusing. I honestly don't really pay that much attention to it. I don't care if you're religious or not. If I need the stress relief, I'm gonna use the stress relief and reject the Gods, basically. The other ones I don't really care that much about. Revel, I mean, honestly, Revel can be really good if you have a lot of herbs to get rid of this debuff. So what Revel does is it costs 3, but it gives everyone in your party minus 20 stress and less stress taken for 4 battles. But it also decreases your party's speed and accuracy. The speed I don't really mind too much, but the accuracy part I really hate. So if I were to use that, I probably would herb all 4 people. Battle Trance I don't think is like that great. Like I would never use Battle Trance if it costs 3. I would always Sharpen Spear. If I had 3 left, I'm always going to choose Sharpen Spear over Battle Trance. This gives you extra damage if you're in position 1, and minus 25% damage if you're not in position 1. But I mean, like, I don't really use it, especially if I'm in a dungeon where I know I can get moved around by enemies and stuff. But I mean, it's up to you. If you want the damage, go ahead and take that. I just prefer crit. The next person we're going to talk about is the Jester. Now, the Jester is a very fun, very interesting class. So, the Jester hasn't changed a lot in the recent years. You can bring him in as like a supporter. Inspiring Tune decreases someone's stress. You can choose whoever's stress you want to decrease. It's really good. And it reduces the amount of stress that they can receive, which is really good. Battle Ballad, it increases your entire party's speed, accuracy, and crit, and yes, it stacks. So you can literally just be sitting in the back line, battle ballading, dung bada bada bung bung, forever and ever and ever, and buffing the hell out of your party. That's how I really like using the Jester. But Finale, ooh, Finale is a great one-hit kill skill. So, what Finale is you have to be in the first 2 positions and you just do a shit ton of damage because every single other one of his skills buffs Finale. Let's take a look. Inspiring Tomb, buffs Finale damage and crit. Battle Ballad, buffs Finale damage and crit. Slice Off, buffs Finale damage. Solo, buff Finale damage and crit. Harvest, buff Finale damage. And Thirst Stab buffs Finale damage. So you just keep using your skills, and then boom, one-hit kill someone. It feels amazing. This can be really, really, really good in boss fights. Just we're gonna buff our team. Bum bada bada bum bum, bum bada bada bum bum. Suddenly, solo, forward 3, we're in the front line. Ready for a finale? Boom, finale. Boss goes from 50% health to dead. Because it does a shite ton of damage, and the crit chance from buffing your team, oh baby, it's beautiful. Mwah. It's beautiful when it happens. So if you're like me and like using the Jester as a supporter until the very end, we're ready for your solo, and then boom, finale. And these are the 4 skills that I recommend for you. If you don't want to use solo, you could use Dirk Stab. What Dirk Stab does is it just like brings him forward 1 while buffing finale damage. Boop, 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 brings him into position, then you can finale all the way to the back. That's totally fine too. Harvest, you can just keep him in position 3 or 2, and just harvest. But I don't like keeping him in position 2 because then you can't use these buffs, you know? So like if you were to make like a frontline Jester, like position 2 Jester, I guess would be like these 4, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone use a frontline Jester. You could try it out. If you were to do a frontline Jester, I would say use these 4 skills, but I really like having his team buffs and his stress relief, and then either the Dirk Stab or the solo to get him in position for finale. Those are the skills that I recommend. For camping skills, oh baby, all 4 of the Jester's camping skills are great. Get all 4 of them. Turn back time, cost 3, gets rid of 30 stress from someone. Amazing. Unless they're afflicted, then it's not as useful. I probably wouldn't use it. Every rose has its thorn. Is what I use the most, I think. It costs 3, but it reduces everyone's stress by 15. So if you need a single target stress relief and they're not afflicted, then I would use turn back time. If everyone has like a little bit of stress and you want to get rid of everyone's stress, every rose has its thorn, it's really, really good. Tiger's Eye is also really amazing, also costs 3. It buffs 1 person's accuracy and crit for 4 battles. Mockery can be good. This is a little bit of a gamble, but it only costs 2, and it gets rid of 20 stress from everyone except for 1 guy. So I like starting off a campfire with Mockery, get rid of everyone's stress except for 1 guy, and then get rid of that 1 guy's stress, you know? Get that little combo going. But yes, all 4 of the Jester's camping skills are good to go. Next person we're going to look at is the Leper. People used to hate the Leper back in the day. I don't know if they still do hate the Leper. I don't really know what the meta is right now. I don't really pay attention to that kind of stuff. I just like who I like, and I like everybody. But I also really, really love the Leper. The Leper has very bad accuracy. That is something that you have to know if you're gonna bring a Leper in. I honestly like giving him 2 accuracy trinkets. There is a Leper specific accuracy trinket, which is right here. It gives him extra 8 accuracy. There's also a lot of other accuracy trinkets. As you play the game, you're gonna get a ton of trinkets, but any accuracy trinket, like one of my favorites is Focus Ring, gives you extra 10 accuracy. Accuracy mod of plus 18, he needs it. Because the base accuracy is 95, but this is at max level. The base accuracy, I think, starts at like 85% chance, which is not high in Darkest Dungeon. You're gonna miss constantly. It's gonna be infuriating. Purge is okay. It just does damage and knockbacks the person in front of you all the way to the back, buffs your own accuracy, and gets rid of all the corpses. It's pretty good. I tend to bring in Withstand and Solemnity. A must-have is Chop, and Solemnity. The other one is kind of up to you, but I would say definitely Chop and Solemnity. Solemnity is a self-heal and stress heal. It's really, really, really good. Revenge buffs yourself, your accuracy, your damage, your crit, but it decreases your dodge and it increases your damage taken. What Withstand does is it increases your protection, your blight resistance, bleed resistance, debuff resistance, and move resistance, but it marks you, which can be good, you know, because now you're so tanky. You have so much protection now and so much resistance that it's kind of good that you're marked so that enemies can hit you instead of your team. However, the downside is sometimes you'll go against enemies that specifically have an attack that does a shit ton of damage to you if you're marked. So Withstand is kind of risky. Like if you're gonna go into the wheel with the Leper and you mark yourself, the fungal men are gonna keep doing rend the mark, and do a shit ton of damage. So it's kind of a risk, but that's what Withstand does. It's really up to you if you want to bring it. What Intimidate does is it just bypass stealth. If you're in the front line, you can hit anybody on the enemy team and it will de-stealth them. But it'll also mark yourself and increase your speed. So again, depending on where you go, which dungeon you go into, you might want to bring Intimidate or you might not want to bring Intimidate. But I feel like I kind of tend to use maybe like these four, or these four, or these four. I feel like I always bring in Hue and Chop and Solemnity, and then like one of these four depending on where I'm going. Now for camping skills, you must have Reflection. It costs 3, reduces your stress by 20, increases your accuracy and crit for 4 battles. Very, very worth it. This is also very good. It only costs 1, but it reduces your stress by 25. It gives everyone else 5 stress, but like that's kind of negligible. So if you really have a lot of stress on you, on your Leper, and the rest of your team is doing okay on stress, I would definitely use Let the Mask Down. Bloody Shroud is also really good, especially if you're going into certain boss battles or something. Or if you are in the Cove and you know you're getting bled all the time and you want some bleed resistance or whatever, blight resistance, move resistance. If you want Bloody Shroud and you have the time left over to use it, I would use Bloody Shroud. Quarantine, I also love using, and I use it all the time. It hurts himself 20% HP, but it reduces everyone else's stress. So he's very good at managing his own stress and his party stress. So I really like all 4 of the Leper's camping skills. I would highly recommend unlocking all 4 of the Leper's camping skills. The next person I'm going to be talking about is the Man-at-Arms. This is, oh my god, I love the Man-at-Arms. Oh my god, all of his skills are great. Except for Bellow. I don't really use Bellow. It's not bad. I would just rather use something else, you know? Let's start with the easy one. Crush. First 2 positions, hit anyone in position 1 to 3. It's just a melee attack. It's good to have, it's fine. Rampart. It says moves you forward 1, but it knocks back somebody and it there's a chance to stun them. Pretty good. I like his stun. Again, I don't use Bellow. Defender. Now this is what makes a Man-at-Arms the Man-at-Arms. He will guard somebody. So let's say you're bringing in a Vestal, and let's say the Vestal is getting a little bit low on health. She might die if nobody protects her. Well, you can use Defender on your Vestal. Now any damage that's gonna go specifically to the Vestal will now go to you. However, if the enemy does a AoE party attack to you, she will still get hit. You can't take double damage for her. You can't block her if an enemy is doing a 4-party AoE attack. Retribution I really love. Retribution, my god. Retribution activates Riposte and it marks himself so that it increases the likelihood of people attacking him. And then we've already talked about Riposte. It activates Riposte, so any enemy move that would damage him, he can riposte back. This is why I love bringing in a Man-at-Arms with a Highwayman. This is one of my favorite combos. Highwayman, point blank shot, goes to the back line. Man-at-Arms activates Retribution. He has Riposte up. Highwayman uses Duelist Advance. Now in position 1. Both of them have Riposte. If the enemies to any AoE attack, they're gonna get 2 Ripostes in their face, and it's amazing. And the Riposte can crit too, so you can just kill people without even having to attack. And this combo works really well in the Darkest Dungeon. because there are enemies there that do a lot of like frontline AoE attacks. These two are party buffs, and I think they're very, very good. This one is called Command. You buff, it says buff target, but the target is everyone. It's your entire party. Your entire party gets an accuracy buff and a crit buff, and extra damage while they're guarded. Bolster increases everybody's dodge and decreases the amount of stress that they get. You can only use Bolster one time per battle though, so you can't just keep buffing and buffing and buffing and buffing your party's dodge and make their dodge be 100 and never be able to get hit again. That's too overpowered, so only once per battle, but still it's worth bringing in, seriously. For the Man-at-Arm camping skills, honestly, all 4 of them are good. So let's go through them. Tactics, my favorite one. This one is probably the one that I will always use no matter what. It buffs your party's dodge and crit. And I love the dodge and crit stats. I'm obsessed with dodging and critting. So I really like tactics. Instruction is good, but it buffs accuracy and speed. It costs 3. There are better 3 cost skills. Weapons practice is also can be really good. It gives everybody extra 10% damage, which it's okay. It's like not that much extra damage, but it also has a 75% chance of people getting also a crit buff. The crit buff is what's good, but it's only a 75% chance to get it for each person. Each person has a 75% chance to get this crit buff, which is why I tend to just use tactics, because everyone gets the 5% crit buff, you know? I would rather guarantee everyone get dodge and crit rather than everyone get a little bit of damage, extra damage, and then maybe a crit buff. Maintain equipment is totally fine. It's good, but it costs 4, and it gives only yourself a protection and damage buff. I would much rather spend that 4 and buff the entire party. All 4 are fine, but the one I really actually use is tactics. Now moving on to Occultist. Oh boy. I hate the Occultist. I always use him, and I use him a lot, but I hate him because the Occultist will always fail me at the worst possible time. I am the one, the way your son don't need a gun to get respect up on the street. I feel like everyone else's Occultists are so nice to them, but my Occultists are so mean to me at all times. Anyway, I like using a backline Occultist as in position 3 or 4. I tend to not really like using him in position 1 or 2. Sacrificial Stab, if you're in position 1, 2, or 3, it just does damage, just a melee damage to the first 3 enemies. It does extra damage against Eldritch though, which is why I tend to bring in the Occultist when I go into the Cove as my main healer, rather than the Vestal. Because the Vestal does extra damage against Unholy, so you like to bring her into the ruins. But the Occultist does extra damage to Eldritch people, which are the fish people in the Cove and also in the Darkest Dungeon. So I like having Sacrificial Stab, which is why I like having him in the 3rd position. I usually, if I'm gonna bring an Occultist in, I usually bring like an Arbalest or somebody in the back line, because I like having him in position 3. Because of the Sacrificial Stab, especially if I'm going into the Cove, I really like bringing in Sacrificial Stab. That's extra damage against those fishies. Abyssal Artillery also does extra damage to the fishies, but because it's an AoE attack, it'll do less damage. It's still fine, like I do use Abyssal Artillery, but it's just know that it'll do a little bit less damage. Weakening Curse is very good. I always bring Weakening Curse. It debuffs the target's damage and protection. So again, bringing this Occultist into the Cove where there's a lot of tanky fish and snail and crab or whatever, all these crustaceans everywhere, reduce their protection, much easier to kill. This is a must-have. Why even bring an Occultist in if you're not even gonna bring in this heal? Now here's why I hate the Occultist. He can heal way more than the Vestal. He can like crit 44 heal. It's insane. The Vestal's heal only goes, it says 8 or 9, which obviously can be boosted by trinkets, but still 8 or 9. This guy can heal from 0 to 22, but here's the thing, he can heal 0. And if you have my luck, he will heal for 0 many times. And another thing you may notice is that there is a chance for him to bleed the person he's healing. I have died to my own Occultist doing a 0 heal on someone who was already on death's door and then bleeding them, and then on their turn they just immediately died because the occultist bled them while they were on death's door, when in actuality I needed the occultist to save their life. He can be an asshole like that. I'm just letting you guys know. He can be very useful. Just be prepared for him to be an asshole. At least half the time. Vulnerability Hex, also great. Extremely good if you are bringing him in with an already Mark Synergy build. Let's talk about Hands from the Abyss, the move that I never ever use because I never put him in the second position or the first position. This is a stun. It stuns the person in position 1, 2, and 3, and it decreases your torchlight, which you might want if you're doing a dark run. Last skill that he has is a Demon's Pull. You can use it when you're in position 2, 3, or 4, and it pulls the person in position 3 or 4 up 2 slots. And it clears all the corpses. Let's talk his camping skills now. Abandon Hope, honestly, can be really good. Only costs 1. Removes 25 of his own stress, but there is a chance, 50-50 chance of giving everybody else either 5 or 10 stress. Sometimes that is worth doing. If everyone else has 0 stress, my occultist has a lot of stress, then I'm gonna use Abandon Hope. So I do always bring this in just in case I need that. Dark Ritual, I like bringing in just in case. This removes mortality debuffs. So if someone is on death's door, they have that mortality debuff, right? Well, Dark Ritual, it heals that person by 50% and it removes their mortality debuffs. So that's really good. However, it also reduces your torchlight by 100. So usually after camping, your torchlight will be at 100. But if you use this, then your torchlight will be at 0. And also, it'll give that person 15 stress. Sometimes this is worth it. Sometimes it's not worth it. But I do bring it just in case I do use it. Dark Strength is something I almost never use, but it's not a bad skill. It gives myself 15 stress, but it buffs someone's damage by 20%. That's pretty good. But I don't know, I just don't really use it that much. I run out of time. I run out of time with use these other skills. Unspeakable Commune is the cheapest prevent nighttime ambush in the game, which is why I always bring it. It gives everyone 7 stress, but it is the cheapest nighttime ambush. It only costs 3, so I can use a few more skills, whereas the other ones cost like 4. I think one might cost 5 even, but yeah, so I like this Unspeakable Commune as our prevent nighttime ambush. So these are the 4 skills that I would recommend for Occultist, but again, you can use Dark Strengths if you want that damage buff. Alright, moving on to the Flagellant, where there's only 2 more people to cover, and they're the DLC characters, the Flagellant and the Shieldbreaker. The Flagellant, I tend to use these 4 skills that you see unlocked here right now. Flagellant is a frontliner healer. He is very interesting to use, so the lower his health is, the better he is. And I will explain in detail. Punish, it's just a bleed attack. Does a lot of bleed though, and it debuffs the target's bleed resistant. Punish, even at level 1, does 4 points of bleeding for 3 rounds. I really like bringing the Flagellant in as the healer in Warrens or Wield because of his high bleed skills. Punish, you have to be in position 1 or 2 to use, and it'll hit anyone in position 1 or 2. Now, Rated Sorrows is fine. It's just an AoE attack, and you guys know I don't really like AoE attacks that much, but what it does is it hits the people in the back 2 in position 3 and 4, and there's a chance to bleed both of them. But again, I don't really use AoE skills, so I don't really use that. Exsanguinate, I always like bringing in. If you are below 40 HP, then you do a lot of damage to somebody in the first or second position, heal yourself a lot, and bleeds them for 5 points per round for 3 rounds. But it also debuffs how much healing that you can do, because you can't just keep spamming Exsanguinate and just like heal everybody. Reclaim I really like, because you basically, there's a chance to bleed yourself, which I get very annoyed when my Flagellant doesn't bleed himself. It's giving somebody a regen. You're giving somebody else a regen. So 2 points of healing at level 1 for 2 rounds, and it bleeds yourself. And at the lower your health gets, the better the Flagellant becomes, remember? So you get low from the bleeding by giving other people recovery, and then you can use Exsanguinate or you can use Redeem. Again, valid only below 40% HP. What it does is it heals somebody 33% of their max health, heals the Flagellant himself 34% of his max health, and again reduces the healing skill efficacy because you can't just keep healing, spamming this big boy heal. It's a really big heal. Endure, if you really need stress relief, is fine. It just reduces someone else's stress, but it gives yourself stress. And the thing about the Flagellant is he can never be virtuous. When he gets to 100 stress, he will always become rapturous. And that's fine. Rapturous can be good because then he hurts himself. Then you can use his stronger skills and stuff like that. But it can also stress the rest of our party out. I personally don't really like bringing in his stress heal because I personally don't really want him to be rapturous. But this is, this is a personal thing. Play around with it, see if you like it when he's rapturous, or maybe you won't. Suffer is basically, if somebody is marked and or bleeding and or blighted, you take their marked and bleed and blight and you take it for yourself. Suffer. You suffer for them. So now you're marked. So you get less stress, but now you're marked, you have their bleed, you have their blight, but you get extra death blow resistance too. Also, it's not shown here or anything, but every time your Flagellant gets on death's door, so every time your Flagellant has 0 health, the rest of your party gets healed a little bit. Another good thing about Flagellant being low health, that's why his death blow resistance is pretty high for base. If we compare it to someone else, it's 67, his is 73. So it's like 6% higher. There's also death blow resistant trinkets you can give him as well to help him out, so he can stay on 0 health for longer if he really wants. As far as camping skills go, again, like, some people like the Rapturous. So if you like the Rapturous, you can give yourself 40 stress and it costs only 1 time point or whatever. I like getting rid of the stress, so I really like Lash's Solace. It only costs 3, but I get rid of 50 stress. That's a lot of stress to get rid of for a 3 cost. Lash's Kiss, it heals yourself and removes bleeding and removes blight. I haven't really found a real need for this. I don't think I've ever had a time where I needed to use that. But I mean, you can bring it in. It's fine to bring in. I just wouldn't waste a lot of money on this, unlocking this early. I just don't think you really need it. But Lash's Cure is really good. It removes your own disease. So Lash's Solace and Lash's Cure, I think, are the 2 must have skills, at least in my opinion. The last person to go over is the Shieldbreaker. Now, the Shieldbreaker, I like all of her skills, honestly. She's very good in a movement-heavy build. I really like bringing her in with like the Highwayman or the Grave Robber. I really like bringing the Shieldbreaker and the Grave Robber both into the Cove because both of them do blights. And Shieldbreaker is seriously like the best character that you could possibly bring into the Cove, because the Cove has enemies that will guard other enemies, but the Shieldbreaker literally breaks the guard, and it's great because the tanky ass frontliner Octopus Man will shield the very squishy, very annoying shaman fish in the back who keeps stressing you out and stressing you out and stressing you out, and now you can't even hit him because he's guarded. What can you do? Just bring in a Shieldbreaker in the Cove. That's the best tip I can give you. Bring a Shieldbreaker into the Cove. She'll get rid of the guard, and she can use it in any position, and she can hit anyone in any position. This is a must-have. You must have Puncture if you're gonna bring the Shieldbreaker in. Also Pierce. Armor piercing. Bring her into the Cove because there's a lot of enemies in the Cove that have high protection. Well, she has armor piercing, so goodbye protection. So Adder's Kiss is a huge blight skill. It puts you back 1, and you can only use it when you're in the front line, so now you're in the 2nd position. But again, that's fine because Puncture and Pierce both move you forward. So you can just keep dancing with whoever. But you can blight the person in the front or in the 2nd position on the enemy. Pretty good. Impale is also pretty good. You can only use it when you're in the 1st position. It's a AoE blight, and it pushes you to the back. So like, again, I don't really like AoE that much, but you know, sometimes it does come in clutch. Up to you if you want to bring this or not. It's not bad. It does do an AoE attack, and there's a chance to blight everybody as well. Expose is what I like to bring in to dungeons because it bypasses stealth. But you can't reach the 4th position, and it's usually the 4th position who has the stealth anyway. So it's not like the best de-stealthing skill, but it's good enough, and it also has an extra 6.5% chance to crit. I do like Captivate a lot. This is also a huge blight, and this also synergizes with a marked target. So if you're going into the Cove and you're bringing an Occultist, an Arbalest, a Shieldbreaker, a Grave Robber, all 4 of them have mark synergies, and you can just do shite tons of damage with Captivate. Captivate really good. Serpent Sway I actually don't use that much. It gives yourself 2 blocks. That means the next 2 attacks you block, then you take no damage. It is really good. It buffs your speed, gives yourself 2 blocks. You can use it twice per battle, so basically you can negate 4 attacks. So this is pretty good for boss fights. But I just tend to really prefer very offensive skills to defensive skills, so I don't really tend to use this, but it is a good skill to have. Now for camping skills, I would say these 2 are the must-haves for her, the Snake Eyes and the Snake Skin. So the Snake Skin I really like because it only costs 3, but it gives yourself a protection and HP buff. Snake Eyes I think is really good if you are going to the Brigand Pounder fight, which I'll go over bosses and who are the best characters to bring into certain boss fights in a future video. But Snake Eyes is pretty good, gives everybody some armor piercing. Sandstorm I never use. It just prevents one companion from being marked for 4 battles, but like, don't really care about that, to be honest. And Adder's Embrace I never use. It just increases your blight skill chance. Like if I wanted to increase my blight skill chance that much, I would just bring a blight skill trinket. So I usually just use Encourage and then give her Encourage and then these 3, but I only really use these 2 and like mostly just Snake Skin, and if we really need armor piercing then I use Snake Eyes. But yeah, that's the buildings and all the skills for every hero. If you watched the whole thing, holy crap, thank you so much. If you just wanted to click on the whichever heroes you were confused about, that's also great. Thank you so much for watching. My next video will be on the specific boss battles and which heroes work best against those specific bosses.